Hey, boys and girls, buffaloes and bunnies.
Hello,
Uh,
hello.
yeah, welcome to Answers in Atheism, where we have answers in atheism. All the
Maybe.
answers, all the answers. We have all the answers. I forgot that I had to shut off two streams because your pragmatic crystal is on both streams.
Hi, Pragmatic Crystal.
Thank you for giving us two views instead of one. How about that? If everybody did that.
Crystal is an awesome supporter
I know I always feel such a positive presence.
and a
It's weird
very,
because we only experience Pragmatic through actual text and everything, but you
Yep.
can tell the positive vibes. They just kind of radiate.
Icarus is here.
Pragmatic is in the special group too because Pragmatic owns a Grassman Chronicles t-shirt. And there's only 3 of them in the world. Trees and I and Crystal are the only ones that own one. So we're in a elite club.
Let's see. Roland Griffiths was a man who started psychedelic research, and a neuroscientist studied the brain for like 50 years, and he started psychedelic research in the 1990s, and he was responsible for getting together money and getting Johns Hopkins on board, and he did a number of articles, and he's probably responsible for the resurgence of psychedelics in medicine today, and he did a lot of work. And about a year and a half ago, he went for a routine colonoscopy, which he had missed, I guess, during the COVID period, and expecting to be perfectly healthy. And they told him instead he had stage 4 colon cancer and that he would be dead within months. And he passed away on, well, I used it, didn't I? He died on October 16th, last Monday. And he was an incredible person. And I've been a little tough on Roland over the years because I didn't like some of the things that he was saying in public about psychedelics early on. He sounded a little bit like a woo head, but he settled down and he kind of brought it in, and he was trying to raise money, but he's a pretty wonderful person. I think I was sad to hear that. But the interesting thing about Roland Griffiths is that he really had his attitude when he found out he was dying, absolutely amazing. And I guess he did psychedelics once or twice to help him with the process. But I'm going to play a little clip from Oprah Winfrey. And I linked all this stuff. So
I went in for a screening colonoscopy over a year ago, believing myself to be completely healthy, coming out with a positive finding, which was confirmed within just a few days that it was metastatic cancer. I had a long history of meditation. I had contemplated my own death, but I had no real sense of how I might respond to a diagnosis of this sort. So I kind of probed into depression and anxiety and denial and resentment, but came to realize very quickly that inhabiting any of those states would simply be torture. And so what I turned to is a gratitude practice. And it's something that we all should know. But for me, the gain or the volume was turned up. And that is the preciousness of what it is to be alive. I have never been happier or had more equipoise than ever before in my life.
Pretty cool, eh? Yeah.
too.
Anyway, and there's a full-length interview with him where he's talking about, you know, how I'm curious, you know, about death. You know, I've heard all these stories, you know, about what it might be, and I'm and then he says to the audience, he says, "I'm going to find out before any of you, probably." It's like, and he did a week ago. So, and this interview was like 3 or 4 months before he died. So, anyway, yeah, but he talked about the absolute wonder that we are an evolved sentient race, right? And we got to be like, of all the little balls of matter out there, all of us humans got to be human beings, right? We should be fucking falling on our knees in gratitude every day for that. Just like, thank God, thank you, universe. It's like you picked my little ball of matter to get to be conscious, you know, and I think that's pretty fucking cool. I don't know. Anyway.
I poured out all my feelings about death in my video after the couple funerals a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, that was a good video.
It was
Very
all
good video.
rolling through my head, and I just wrote it down in a couple of minutes, and I put it on and I streamed it while it was all rolling through my mind.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, and now we have some bozos to deal with. Stephen Meyer, Douglas Axe. Stephen Meyer was named in the Wedge document. You know about the Wedge document?
Oh, yeah.
Where the Christians talked about basically taking over politics and education and culture with their ideas about intelligent design and how they were going to wedge their way in. And they've been doing that, and they've been busy doing that for 20, 30 years. Just busy as shit. And these guys are absolutely amazing in their blatant push for theocracy. And Professor Dave covers Stephen Myers very well. It's a very technical video, but he was the second one in that group that he did a takedown on about a year ago. Hopefully I will find a link for that somewhere. Let me see here. What do we got? First thing
Dave's list. He's taken down everybody at the Discovery Institute.
Yep. Yeah, and he did. Oh God, this bullshit about, you know, the Precambrian explosion is where life happened, and, you know, where God did it, right? Yeah. Yeah, a life sentence. Anyway, with the Cambrian, Professor Dave digs deep into the Cambrian, showing that this bullshit about the Cambrian explosion is just that. The creationists are they're bouncing off that particular phrase or name, and that got them excited because that sounded like God came down and threw life at the ocean, right? The explosion, like it happened overnight, right? 70 million years. And then right now we know that a whole lot happened in the Ediacaran before that. And Professor Dave does an unbelievably technical and detailed job of showing you that. Even if you don't understand what he's saying, along the line, you can see how the weight of evidence is for the gradual transformation of species and how all that stuff happened early on when life started out. So Kafai is here. Kafai likes Roland Griffiths.
I put a link in the live chat. Let me know if you've ever seen that channel.
Okay.
They're creationists with Todd Wood and that over there.
Oh, let's see. Episode 68. Oh my God. Let's talk creation.
Oh boy, it's
What are these puppies?
It is deep talking about, you know, putting the animals on the ark and
Oh, they get right into it, eh?
he was concerned. Well, you know, I grew up in pig farming, and you know the smell is pretty bad, and I just can't imagine the smell. And it's like, forget the smell, it's methane.
Yeah.
It's poisonous. And on Ken Ham's ark, he's got oil lamps everywhere.
I grew up with cow shit and pig shit. Cow shit ain't so bad. Pigs and chickens, man, they stink.
Yep.
They're really bad. Really bad.
But basically, if Noah held his nose, right, it wouldn't be so bad. It's just smell, right? And it's like,
yeah, but
you'd all be dead.
Yeah, enough methane to kill everybody.
Or spark up an oil lamp and
Yeah.
everything's gone.
Yep. Okay, so I got a little clip here. The first thing is, it'll tell its own story. You ready?
Ready.
I want to start by just saying this. If I type your name in on Google, Stephen C. Meyer, it says that Stephen C. Meyer is an American author and former educator. He is an advocate of the pseudoscience of intelligent design. And I just think that that's interesting right out of the gate. And I wanted to give you a chance to respond to that idea.
Do you think he's trying not to cry here?
Why is it referred to as a pseudoscience, intelligent design?
Notice the term itself, pseudoscience, implies a definition of what presumably true science is. And this is in the philosophy of science known as the demarcation problem. How do you define science and distinguish it from pseudoscience or philosophy or religion or metaphysics or something else? And it turns out that that's a very difficult thing to do because
No.
Popper and a number of others did it some 70 years ago. Worked on explained the demarcation problem. He gave us a very clear idea of what we need to do in science and what we don't do. So, anyway.
the methods of reasoning that are used in scientific disciplines.
Pause the tape, please, real quick.
Are-
Also, like pseudoscientists typically don't go out and do actual field research and do experiments and statistical studies, none of which Stephen C. Myers does. So there's your first clue that you might be happening upon a pseudoscience.
Yeah. Well, philosophers of science believe that, oh God, without them, we wouldn't be able to do science at all, and it's like, well, yeah, they cleared a lot of things up for us, but this guy didn't, as we'll see here.
Are actually not dissimilar, and in some cases are the same as the methods of reasoning that are used in philosophy or metaphysics or
okay. All right, sorry. I'm not
historical work or forensic inquiry. So the term pseudoscience is obviously a pejorative. It's meant to stigmatize someone without actually engaging in the person's arguments. But the presumed definition of science that is underlying that term and its use on the Wikipedia entry is that if you're to be a scientist, you must limit yourself to strictly materialistic explanations for everything. And you may not invoke intelligence or creative intelligence as a cause to explain anything. The reason they've designated me and other advocates of the theory of intelligent design as pseudoscientists is because they've presupposed a materialistic definition of science. There's a term in the philosophy of science for that definition. It's called methodological naturalism or methodological materialism.
Okay, this guy is supposed to be a PhD philosopher of science, and he doesn't understand. He forgot that the word methodological naturalism, it precedes naturalism. Methodological naturalism is not a metaphysical position about the universe. It is a method of doing what we call science. And if you're not using methodological naturalism, you're a fucking pseudoscientist. It's that simple, Mr. Myers.
Exactly.
It's just, oh my God.
I went to Professor Google.
Yeah.
And I said pseudoscience meaning.
Yeah.
And this is from from Oxford Languages. I don't know, maybe that's part of the Oxford Dictionary or something totally different, but it says its definition is a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on scientific method, the new pseudoscience of counseling, as an example. And that's not my opinion on counseling. That's just the kind of quote they used as an example in a sentence. So basically, isn't chiropractic considered a pseudoscience? And
Yeah, it's not.
one way
Well,
we know this is they put on white lab coats to promote it.
yeah. I guess if you saw chiropractors as scientists, but they're not. They're people that massage your body,
Right.
and the jury's still out on whether or not they do any good. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. I've heard of cases.
Yeah, that
where
was
they,
just a quick assessment.
Well,
Now there's a Scientific American article. I'll put the link to it that covers what is pseudoscience.
right. But
And,
okay, let's.
I'll put that
alchemy.
in the private chat.
Yeah, alchemy is not chemistry.
Yeah.
Astrology is not astronomy.
Let's
There's a reason they have different names.
let's consider acupuncture. Okay, so acupuncture was considered a pseudoscience because acupuncturists were talking about all these chakras and areas of your body and all this crap, right? But then they found out that when you stimulate a nerve or when you stick a pin next to a nerve, that it actually releases neurotransmitters that can shut off pain nerves, and so pins can actually. And I think everybody notices this because when you get a wound, if you squeeze it, or if you were to, if you have a pain in your arm, your left arm, and you poke your right arm, it tends to shut that off a little bit. But it's more than that. It actually sends out neurotransmitters. So they found a naturalistic explanation for why sticking pins in a person might alter the way they feel pain, right? And then, okay, that part of it was not pseudoscience. The pseudoscience part was when they said, oh, it was like the chakras and the forces of the body and all this bullshit. And they were talking about things that we have no evidence for. Now, what Myers is going to talk about is the Rosetta Stone, for instance. We found the Rosetta Stone. Or we found artifacts like tools, stone tools, prehistoric stone tools, and we inferred to the best possible explanation because it didn't look like those particular stone shapes would have appeared there without some prehistoric men carving them, right? And then he's going to say, oh, it's the same thing with biology where we're just saying that an intelligence did it. No. First of all, we knew that there were prehistoric men that could have done it. Okay, so our inference to the best explanation was to reach for something that we knew highly probably existed that was smart enough to shape a stone tool. Now, the problem with intelligent design is there's absolutely no evidence for this God creator thing that had little tiny fingers that made cells. I mean, how did he do that? Did he go in there with his little tiny fingers, move each protein around, decide on each little genetic mutation? No, we have no evidence. So inferring to the best possible explanation, you would not land on a God. But then Stephen Myers uses the science, his inference, to prove God. And then because so now he's proven God because genetics, right? So that proves God. And then we can look at genetics and say, oh, what's the best explanation? God. We already proved God using genetics. So if you're proving God using genetics, and then you use God to explain the you see the circularity?
Mm-hmm.
That is pseudoscience.
TMM just put out a video, I think yesterday, where he totally destroys fine-tuning and all these scientific things. And similar to what I've said before about why have all this stuff if it's God, you can just be magical goo inside. You don't have to have all that stuff. It's all magic.
Yeah.
And the same thing with the arguments, what TMM was saying about fine-tuning is that they're saying that everything has to be just so that God can make everything. And it's like, no, it's God, right? Why
Right.
does God have to follow the
Fine-tune it.
laws of physics or anything else? It's God. God can do anything. If God wants to make us in a universe that has different parameters, why not? It's God. It doesn't make any sense when either way when you use God, it's you can throw it right back at him and it falls apart.
Yeah. Here we go, guys. So, we have an event or we have an artifact. Okay, we'll name it A. So we found something, right? And we're trying to figure out how that thing happened. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of observations, multiple observations of the thing, and we're trying to figure out how it happened. And methodological naturalism says that there has to be somewhere back here an A prime or small a that basically created this. And we know this part right here. Let's see. Okay, we know this part. We know the method that you get from A to A prime, right? And that's something. It's something else that we have many observations of. So we know how genes mutate. We know this, just all this stuff about biology, right? So then we can infer to the best explanation as being A1 can cause A, and we can also look at it and say, well, if A1 caused A, what are some other observations that we're going to get from A that would show like a ghost or a remnant of what A1 did, right? Now, the problem with Magic Man explanations is Magic Man can do anything he wants. It doesn't matter. I mean, Magic Man could have created life 6,000 years ago, last Thursday, 5 million years ago, 10 million years ago. There's absolute Magic Man can do anything. So this explains basically all propositions with God. You can explain anything by saying God did it last Thursday. Okay? God planted all these memories in all of us today so that we all think we had a life before this, but no, we were created last Thursday. There's absolutely no observation that we can make that's going to, of this stuff, that's going to lead us to that. So there is no hypothesis and experiment we could do. Did I make that clear? What I'm talking about?
Yep.
I mean, so what this amounts to is like, okay, I always talk about what do I call it? Oh my God, I even forgot what I call it. M1, N1. Yeah, let's call it N1. Okay. N1 naturalism is something that we all grow up with. We all know how to ride a bike, change a tire, make our dinner, wipe our butts. We have all this stuff, put ourselves to bed, put our pants on. All of this stuff we learn from the time we're little zygotes. We come up, and that's called naturalism 1, basically. Okay, so that's one type of knowledge that we all have. Now, N2 is how science extends that and goes with experiments and goes back and forth and builds up a whole body of supernatural knowledge about how the universe works. Now, the problem with God done it is that comes from M1, okay? Metaphysics 1, or naive metaphysics. Now, in Metaphysics 1, you can imagine an infinite number of different kinds of God and different kinds of things, brain in a vat. So we have BIV, we have Christian God, we have Muslim God, we have Gaia God, right? I mean, you can imagine an infinite number of ways, and there's no way from in here to tell which of those is true. And my favorite, absolute favorite God thing is basically this one here, which is last Thursdayism. Because I'm convinced that I did not exist before last Thursday, and that the whole universe was created last Thursday to look just like this universe today. So there's no way to tell between last Thursdayism and God did it, between the Christian God. But what Myers wants to do is he wants to prove science with God. Okay, but first of all, he needs God to be there to prove science, because basically God has to be there. If you're going to infer to the best explanation, that has to be God, right? But then we're going to use what we find. We'll take that proposition and we'll feed it back into the beginning, and now that proves God. So we're going to prove God with science and naturalism, and we're just going to go in a fucking circle here forever. That's why it's pseudoscience. And he doesn't get that. And he claims to have a PhD in philosophy of science. What the fuck? What the fuck?
That was such a facile explanation there, Mike.
Yeah, facile explanation.
Very facile.
Yeah, he loves that word. Yep. Oh my God, what did I do? I turned the wrong thing on. Oh, who was that guy? Okay, there we go. Okay. So I got a whole bunch of bookmarks. Now, what do we want to listen to, boys and girls? We're at 110, 208, 247. We can just go through a few here and listen to some bullshit.
This definition of science, there are many fields that we recognize as scientific that invoke creative intelligence. If you're an archaeologist and you look at the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum, you're going to immediately infer that there was an intelligence involved in producing those inscriptions in 3 different languages. So we have methods by which we can detect the activity of intelligent agency.
One quick observation.
What's that?
I said one quick observation. He is using that Rosetta Stone illustration wherever he goes to speak or to wherever he writes. It's
right.
It's the most useless and, well, can I say facile?
Facile,
facile illustration ever, because it's just so wildly taken out of context and meaning to where it's just a useless, very poor, very low quality analogy to what inferring to the best explanation and things like that could be, simply because there is a context of earlier, more primitive examples of the development of that language, of the development of writing, of stonework, and so on and so forth. So it's just I can't believe he's getting away with that poor level of representation.
And if you were driving by the airport and you saw a 747, you would infer that men made that, right? But say we just landed on another planet, Mars, right, with absolutely no sign of life anywhere, and we drove by a 747, we'd be like, what the fuck? I mean, you could not infer that men made that. We wouldn't know what made that. We wouldn't have any idea what made it, because there are no men on Mars.
Elon did it.
Yeah. Elon did it.
His car, up there with his car.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's the problem that he is just completely glossing over. And then he's using this whole pile of bullshit to prove God, so that he can prove God with science. So he believes in God. These two jokers here on the screen, Gallagher and his shitty uncle, they believe in God, and there's a lot of evidence for this, right? I mean, there's like, for instance, they're going to mention Douglas Axe. So Douglas Axe, Stephen Meyer, and J.P. Moreland. You remember J.P. Moreland? He wrote Body and Soul, and Eric Hernandez is J.P. Moreland's groupie. So Eric Hernandez, that's the one that Leo's going to debate on November 4th. Basically, so J.P. Moreland and Stephen Meyer wrote a book called Theistic Evolution Crossway? I guess so. Yeah. About basically something about theistic evolution. Anyway, let's see. What is the name of this book? I gotta figure out what page I'm on here. I'm on page 77. 72. So we go back to the beginning of this book. Yeah. Let's see here. If I can pop this up. Get rid of good notes. Get rid of that. Okay. Theistic evolution, forward by scientific, philosophical, and theological critique of theistic evolution. Now, these guys are really angry at theistic evolutionists, people that believe in God and accept evolution, of which there happens to be a whole fuck ton, including our own Dr. Joel Duff. And those people, they wrote a whole book arguing with them, basically. So let me see here. Who were Adam and Eve? I don't know. Let's see. Okay. And here we have Douglas Axe. Douglas Axe is supposedly a protein fold expert who studied protein folding, and he actually did one or two papers back in early 2000 that were printed in journals that weren't really that big a thing, and he came up with that whole 1 in 10 to the 77th proteins are functional. That's Douglas Axe. But anyway, Douglas Axe says here, people of faith should reject the call to affirm the Darwinian explanation of life and should instead affirm the traditional understanding of divine creative action, which defies reduction to natural causes, right? That's what I was saying about M1. It defies reduction. There's nothing you can say about it other than God did it, okay? There are three good reasons for this. Number one, acceptance of Darwinism carries a substantial apologetic cost. Specifically, if Darwin was right that life can be explained by accidental physical causes, then we must forfeit the claim that all humans are confronted by God's existence when we behold the wonders of the living world. When we look at the trees, you can see God. So he's saying that the reason we should deny evolution is his first reason, not for any rational reason, but rather that they won't be able to tell us to look at the trees anymore. You see what he said out loud? He said this out loud.
Yeah, that's just a weak argument. And even the next two are pretty darn weak as well.
Yeah, all accidental explanations of life, whether Darwinian or not, are demonstrably implausible. Now, he thinks with his experiment that he disproved it with his two papers, or one paper. His first paper was kind of telling in that he found one in 4 proteins were functional. Nobody talks about his first paper, where he found that 1 in 4 were functional.
Those are pretty good odds.
Yeah. So then he did a little sleight of hand, and he picked a particular protein, and he picked a particular version of that protein that was synthetic, not natural. And it was already slightly less functional. And then he mutated it, and he came up with some estimate that 1 in 10 to the 77th would be functional. And everybody that has read his paper and criticized it has tried to explain to him that you have shown nothing. You can't take one protein that man created, basically, fuck with it, and prove that no protein can evolve. So he proved nothing, and that's Douglas Axe.
See, that's why you got to read the critiques as well as the individual papers.
Oh, and I can post a whole fuck ton of critiques on that. Sandwalk, Panda's Thumb, a whole bunch of people have done it. He's Dr. Joel Duff has done it. In fact, I think they did a whole series against him at some point. Oh, against his latest book.
You talking about a video series or like a series of articles?
A blog series, a bunch of articles.
Okay.
And I have those somewhere here. We can dig them up later. Yeah. The Biologos forum did a series reviewing Douglas. Oh, this is Douglas Axe's book, Undeniable. Not Meyer's. But they go through and they do a whole huge series. And let's see here. I think
Now, what was that third argument, real quick again?
the third argument was the common justifications for accommodating Darwin's theory within the framework of traditional faith are confused. In other
That's
words,
about the only argument I agree with.
yeah,
Although I give plenty of room
Well-
for people to have their own theological beliefs and conclusions to try to, get the two to work together. But
Right.
I consider most of those arguments kind of weak.
yeah, there are a whole bunch of, let's see, there are 5 articles. Basically, Douglas, this one is done by Kristen Burkett. There's one done here, I believe, by our Keith Fox, another scientist. There's another one here done by Joel Duff, Dr. Joel Duff, basically showing the Chrome all isn't going to work for me until I hook it up here. Hang on a second. Undeniable limiting design. Let's see. My goodness. Okay, you can see the whole thing now. Anyway, Joel Duff does a big thing about why Undeniable is such a bad book, and he gets into it. So anyway, they did a series of like 5 articles from the Henry Center, I think it's called. And these are Christians. These are people of faith that. What did I do? For some reason, that's not showing up right. Anyway, these are people of faith that did a takedown on Douglas Axe and his crappy little paper. So, very, very, very good. I will link that.
A lot of how confused your arguments for trying to mesh the two together are. A lot of that has to do with your views of God and the role of Scripture.
Yeah.
And
Adam and Eve.
Yeah, how to look at Scripture. Is it literal, historical? Well, you're going to get confused reactions because it's kind of hard to make that literal. So, yeah, I wasn't really judging anybody. I was just saying the arguments aren't so good, but the more or the less biblical, Abrahamic your God is, the easier it is to make a note of some sort of working together of God and evolution.
And the track record speaks for itself. Everything used to be supernatural. And then as science figured out, well, this and then this and this, even these hardcore creationists will accept that some things are natural when they want to wave away, well, the tornado came through the town because it's natural. So they totally, that part is no God involved at all. The tornado just happened.
Yeah, the thunder god isn't the explanation anymore.
Yeah.
But, back when Baal used to be a god, of the Canaanites, and back when Yahweh was, a thunder god of the Midianites or whatever, then the thunder god, the storm god, was the answer for that tornado.
And today you've got what you would call maybe moderates or whatever, maybe like Bill Craig or somebody that says, I don't deny the science. Whatever the scientists say by consensus, that's what's accepted. I accept it. He just goes back to there's got to be a point that science doesn't know, and he uses God of the gaps.
Yeah.
But flip that around a couple hundred years ago, and he would have been on the other end, because it would have been, well, it's obviously all supernatural. That's the only explanations we have. So that's what you call post hoc or whatever too. They're just saying, well, see, science found something. Well, there's the Big Bang in the Bible.
Yeah. Looking for things in the Bible that the Bible writers never conceived of.
If you're sitting around the campfire on a hot and humid night, and it's just horribly, oppressively hot and humid, and then all of a sudden you hear thunder booming in the background, booming over the mountaintops, lightning and thunder everywhere. It is reasonable to assume that it is the great bear. The great bear lives up in the mountains, and when he gets hot, he gets really fucking aggravated, and he gets nasty, and he starts throwing down lightning bolts down from the sky. And then he shakes off his fur, and all that sweat falls down on you as rainfall. And that is a good explanation for thunderstorms, don't you think?
Sure.
Yeah. Reasonable.
Well, there's a famous, I guess you would call it video. I think it was on TV too, where they ask different age groups things. And when you ask a young child, is the bear design or is the rock designed so that the bear can scratch its back? Because you show the bear scratching its back up against a rock. And the young children will say, well, obviously that rock is designed for the bear to scratch its back. But
Right.
as they tested older and older children to young adults, it changes to, well, no, the bear is just using the rock to scratch its back. And that's where creationists are. Creationists are at the childlike mentality of, no, obviously that rock was made just so that bear could scratch its back. It's infantile thinking. It's what Peter Atkins uses, intellectual laziness. It's infantile think, and it's wonderful when children are using their imaginations. That's part of learning and everything else. But if you don't progress to that point where you start realizing, no, the bear is using the rock, you have a creationist. They never want to move to that point of, well, obviously the rock is just a rock.
Right. And there's, what was I going to say? Oh, I just lost my train of thought because I want to mention that we got Icarus, and we got Pragmatic Crystal, and we have, who else?
Carol.
Numbell, what? Numbell-Ever? How do you, Nunbell-Ever is here, and Carol's here, James Apperson is here, Kafai is here, and who else we got? Carol Kins. Did I mention Carol? Yeah,
Carol, I did. But so non-believer, is he over on your channel?
Zerberbrock?
None is over on my channel.
None's
yes.
on your channel.
Okay. Because I didn't see them in the.
You've got Nitty's there, Jefferson Spatchcock, Carol, the Freak, Pragmatic Crystal.
A lot of very fine participants in our side chat, and there's Nitty. Nitty just popped up.
Zerovoke, and Nitty's here. Nitty
Nitty's
Maynard,
and Bree is here.
and Bree. Yeah,
Life Science is here. Bree is here. Leo Phileas is here. Maynard Saves. Oh my God, what's happening?
you're too popular, Mike.
Oh, we're gonna have to do something. Purple rhymes with orange.
Purple
my
too.
Oh my God, Purple's on your channel.
Purple. Yeah.
I can see y'all. Anyway, okay.
Welcome everybody on both channels.
Yeah, I got another little piece here. Well, this one's it might be a few minutes long. But
So if you have a thought about
I
that,
have many thoughts about that. In the first place, I think the use of evolutionary theory to explain the origin of religious belief or criminal behavior or altruism or our moral sensibilities, to me, is now laughably facile. It's
That's for you, Scott.
It's laughably facile.
Laughably
No.
Yeah, I guess he's talking about evolutionary biology or psychology, and it's pushed back. But the guy really doesn't.
extremely superficial form of thinking. We're having trouble using mutation and selection and other similar standard evolutionary mechanisms to explain the origin of protein folds,
He's having trouble.
to explain the origin of body plans. The main thing evolutionary theory was designed to explain was the origin of new biological form. 2004 book with MIT Press lists a whole category, Stuart Newman and Gerd Muller, and they have a table in their introduction to the book, and they list all the unsolved problems of modern evolutionary theory. One of them is the origin of biological form, the very thing that Darwin was supposed to have explained. Let me just, I made both these arguments.
Well, let's stop this.
Let me
I need some clarification. Now, when he says the origin of biological form, is he talking about a biogenesis, or is he talking about?
No, he's
or
talking
just saying
about,
that mutation and natural selection are insufficient to bring about changes in morphological structure?
he's talking about body plans, biological form. Oh my God. So anyway, here's open questions concerning morphological evolution. So this entire book, in the introduction, they list a whole bunch of problems. And then the rest of the fucking book is where they tell you what all the thinking on it is today and why they're not not such great problems. So questions arising from genetics. Here's some other ones, right? Jurassic Park scenario, novelty. What is this one? I can't read. Polyphenism, redundancy and overdetermination, discordance, epigenesis. So these are all things that modern evolutionary theory works on, and there are thousands, tens of thousands of papers on this sort of stuff, right? And he uses this book basically because they listed problems in the very introduction, right? They're talking about it. He's going to use this book as evidence that he's right, which is just utter fucking bullshit, Mr. Meyer.
Yeah, the thing is, science, people who are have careers in a particular discipline or field of science kind of will often do a meta-analysis to step back and look at the problems in their field. They'll look at critiques and try to address them. That's part of the scientific process, not for a particular experiment, just a kind of state of the field, state of the discipline, and that's just part of the growth process.
So-
and you can tell people, like, let's say you're having a conversation with somebody who's arguing against evolution, and they go, "Look, there's all these problems. This has been identified." You can say, "Well, have you gone back to look at all the art journal articles, all of the books that address those critiques and admit those issues and propose ways to go about dealing with them?" That's most creationists are going to be a little too lazy to do that, but that's just, you just have to point them in that direction, I would think.
So also in the introduction, Muller and Newman say, by promoting the discussion and formulation of new theoretical concepts in biosciences, this series intends to help fill conceptual gaps in our understanding of some of the major open questions of biology, such as the origin and organization of organismal form, the relationship between development and evolution, or the biological basis of cognition and mind. And this, mind you, is a book that talks about all of that stuff and doesn't just hand wave it away and say God did it. This book tells you, it gives you some clues about how all of this happened. I'm trying to find the date on this book. I think it's a pretty old book. Whoa, it's got a hell of a long title here. No, I don't have the date, but
Well, and even if God did it, and it's all followed by the laws of physics and chemistry and all down the line biology, then it still doesn't matter.
right. It's a
Because
2000.
everything still happened naturally. You're just putting God as like a deism or something, just as an observer.
Yeah. It's a 2003 book, and we've had 20 years to work on a lot of these problems. And I assure you a ton of work has been done on biological form and all of that. But let's see what he has to say.
Again.
Mhm.
Okay. The mutation selection mechanism. Well, let's start here. If you want to build a new organism, we now know you have to have new information.
Gary Olson.
Just like in our computer world. If you want to give your computer a new function, you have to provide new code.
Little orphan black.
So if you want to build a new animal form with new anatomical structures and therefore new types of cells, then you're going to need new proteins to service the cells, the new cell types. And so at the very least, you're going to need a lot of new genetic information to build those new proteins. So where does that information come from? Well, the standard Darwinian.
Okay, this is just bullshit. To begin with, you don't need new proteins to go from one type, like a very, very primitive liver, to a fully functioning liver organ, right? You don't need new proteins to make those morphological changes. Changes in regulation and timing of genes is primarily what's involved in the formation of new organs and morphological changes like limbs, fins to limbs. That can be done entirely without any new proteins at all, even though in the process of building a liver, going from a very, very primitive liver that you can find in some worms and other simple organisms to our liver, in that process, there are a number of new proteins that have lodged their way into our genome and become functional as a result of that. But that's a kind of a big story. But he basically sidesteps all of that and says, how you, like, a liver has to like pop up, right? Like you got a worm and it doesn't have a liver, and then all of a sudden you've got a raccoon crawling around and he's got a liver. Well, that obviously new information, new proteins had to be created to pop that up. And that's the way he thinks. And that's why it's pseudoscience, because pseudoscience makes him think like that, right? If you're looking for how this happened, the story of how the liver developed, you have to abandon the pseudoscientific bullshit. And you actually have to look at the steps that it took to make that happen. And we know a lot about those steps, as it turns out. And we know that it's plausible.
I was just going to say, doesn't Meyer use the information argument? And the information argument is like using the kind argument. They don't define what it actually is.
Right.
They just say information.
Well, everybody.
And what you were just saying reminds me of the Richard Dawkins video, where the interviewer asks him, what did we do while we were waiting? He goes, not to be, impolite, but what did we do for these millions of years while we were waiting for our bladder to evolve?
Right.
How did we go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And Richard Dawkins just like squints at him. He's like, it doesn't work like
Doesn't work that way. Oh my God.
But that's exactly what they're thinking, because you get asked that all the time. What did we do while we were waiting for our heart to evolve? It's like, what are you talking about?
But the insidious thing is that the reason that they think like that is because they already believe in this intelligent design and creation. They would not come up with stupid things like that if they weren't already believers.
Yeah, that was my question, was does he just not understand, or is he just parroting bullshit because it's their apologetic tactic?
Okay, everybody that has reviewed Meyer's books, 3 out of 4 of them said Myers doesn't know the first thing about what information is, and he knows absolutely nothing about genetics. And those are real problems for Myers.
Yeah, I put a link in the private chat as well as in the side chat to that human behavioral biology. I put an ampersand in there for some reason. That was stupid. I thought, man, if he had just watched that lecture series and gotten maybe halfway through it, he would know that what he's saying is bullshit.
Right.
Because, Sapolsky in there kind of outlines how genetic changes lead to new functions within the body, within the, even the body plan, new organs, new parts, new cells, new enzymes, just whatever whatever we observe in biology can be explained through evolutionary biology.
Where'd you put the bad ampersand?
Between behavioral and biology, it's human behavioral biology. And I was thinking in terms of human behavior and biology for some reason. So,
okay.
And if you just ask, what do you mean by information? And then they'll say something like evolving an organ, then you have an answer. But if they just leave it out there as, well, information, it's like saying quantum or kinds or whatever. It's just, it becomes a meaningless word.
Right.
There's a brilliant explanation of how in genetics you actually have gene networks where you have a change in one that can actually affect the programming on several different areas down the road, and I hope I'm saying that intelligently, if not superficially there, Mike. But and then he says, well, and then a particular gene can make an extra copy of itself, and because it's not part of this network, it can change rather fast and make novel changes at a high rate, because basically it wasn't doing anything before anyway, because it's a copy. And it's just a very elegant explanation for how it's not that hard to get new information.
Yeah, there's a couple of comments, but first of all, House of Reason 78. Everybody had a wrench but you, but now you have a wrench too. I don't think we've met. I don't think. I'm not sure who House of Reason is. But everybody gets a wrench around here,
Until they abuse it.
Except for Otangelo.
He abused it.
Yeah, we make exceptions. Like if you don't have a wrench, then we're making a goddamn exception.
You say his name, he's going to show up now.
Yeah, he's going to show up. We say Otangelo.
There we go. We're going to hear from him.
House of Reason found a neat little channel today. Let's have a look. House of Reason, we'll just judge it for ourselves if it's a neat little. Oh, him. Oh, wait a minute. John Peters? No, I don't know him. Okay.
Unknown caller.
God damn it. I'm going to shut my phone off, guys.
Or you could just put it on silence.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Yeah. Okay. So
Mike needs a sign up on his screen before he streams. Please turn off your phone. Before
okay. We'll check this channel out.
Mr. Popular. Jeez.
I just put it in my watch later.
It's all his ladies' friends calling him.
Yeah.
Well, there you go, Nerdy Rodent. He knows how to start something with Otangelo.
Oh, I have a new friend, and that friend happens to be a lady. So I'm excited.
Look, be a lady.
The ladies' man. The ladies' man.
Gonna meet Heather for coffee. She's old enough to be my grandchild. There you go. Okay. Now we get that out of the way. What are we doing? Okay, we got a part to get to.
An explanation is that new variation, biological variation, making new form possible, arises as the result of randomly arising mutations that are then, if successful, preserved and passed on by natural selection. But since the 1960s, we've become really since 58 in Crick's sequence hypothesis, but that took a while to confirm. Since the 60s, as it became clear that mutations were operating, if they were operating on the sequence of characters, the nucleotide basis in the DNA. Crick's sequence hypothesis was that DNA contains digital code that is the nucleotide basis, the subunits along the DNA spine are functioning like alphabetic characters or digital characters in a section of machine code. They're providing instructions for building proteins. So
okay, no, they fucking don't provide instructions for building proteins. They are the sequence of the proteins. Okay, that's different. Okay, instructions for doing something would be like, put 2 cups of flour and half a pound of butter in a bowl and mix it up. That's an instruction for doing something. Okay, that is the colloquial or the common man's idea of what information is, having a recipe. The fucking DNA is not a recipe for creating proteins. DNA is the template on which basically the amino acids stick in order to make the protein. So it's a copy, it's a template, it's like a cookie cutter. It's not a fucking instruction manual. And they love to say that. And the average person thinks that DNA is like a recipe for creating an organism. No, it doesn't do that. And everybody in biology now is turning away from this idea that it's all in the genes, it's all in the genes. It's just very, very old thinking. And he goes back to 1960. Do you hear that? Like, what, 8 years after we discovered DNA?
Yeah, it all began to fall apart as soon as they discovered genetics.
Yeah, anyway. Oh my God, it's bad. Bad, bad, bad.
Since that realization has arisen, we realize then that what mutations would be doing would be changing those arrangements of ACs, Gs, and Ts, the digital characters in the quaternary genetic.
Ooh, he used a really big word there.
Well, he keeps using digital. Digital is not the same as the alphabet. He's mixing alphabet with digital.
Yeah.
And digital is on or off. That's digital. And the DNA is chemical bonds. It's a molecule.
Yeah.
They can only bond one way. Certain ones can only bond with each other. It's just chemistry.
DNA is like a little sticky molecule that other things stick to, and then that thing creates an mRNA, and then it goes out of the nucleus, and other things stick to it, and basically that copies a protein from the DNA. That's how it happens. Not an instruction manual. There's no little words in there or intelligence about how this happens. It happens stochastically, and it's absolutely, it's chaos. It's like a fucking tornado inside your cell, and out comes, us. But
Well, and it's a catchphrase because everybody goes, "Oh, digital. Oh, just like a computer. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then everything's just like a computer." Well, then obviously it was made just like a computer, and it's like it's not like a computer.
And he's going to go on, and he's going to amplify the fallacy of thinking of it as words or instructions or digital information.
Code.
Mhm.
Now we have analogous experience of those of
We
that
do.
type of information carrying system, and that is in our computer world. We have digital software. Bill Gates' DNA is like a software program, but much more complex than any we've ever devised. Richard Dawkins has acknowledged that DNA is like a machine code. Leroy Hood says DNA contains digital code. So what happened?
He's quoting the popular digital code bullshit from like the 20th century.
And the key word is analogous. They're trying to explain something to a lay audience.
Right.
That it's putting it. If you start talking very complex to a lay audience, they're sitting there, duh, I don't know what these words are. So it's analogous, and he said it himself. It's analogous.
Hey, Leo, do you have a link to that? I want to see that.
They could use, apples and bananas as an analogy. That doesn't mean the DNA is made of apples and bananas.
Yeah, I mean, if it's, if it's as important, I mean, have you ever seen a fully formed elephant crawl out of your computer, with all that code in there? It's analogous, right, to how life happens. So obviously our computer, we should be able to create life with our computer code, but no, we can't. We know we can't.
Bill Nye, when he debated Ken Ham, said by the math of creationists, we should be seeing how many species just pop into existence before our eyes every day.
Right.
So people should just be looking out, and in your front yard just materializes a new beastie that nobody's ever seen before.
Yep.
That never happens, but creationists have to have it happen.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the best points Bill Nye made in that debate, was that the math says where are these animals just popping into existence?
Yeah, what 11 new species a day,
Yeah.
Something
something
like
like
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
When we randomly change a digital bit string in a section of functioning computer code, if we randomly change the zeros and ones, what happens? Well, two possibilities. Well, here's the question. Do we degrade the function?
Okay. Professor Dave points to some experiments where they've done that with computer code, and they've actually improved the performance of the program by using a filter, which is natural selection, and randomly changing things in a program. So there you go. Can randomly
Of the
and the other thing he's thinking about computer programming languages. If you misspell one of the keywords, of course the fucking thing isn't going to work. Your compiler is going to do natural selection on that and say you've got an error, right? So you can't just randomly change human language or like books, you can't randomly change words. You can to a point and they'll still work, but at a certain point you're going to erase, what we're trying to say. And it's the same with computer code, but they're not actually talking about the binary code. The binary code, you might get by with making a few changes with actually improved code by making a few random changes here and there. But,
You might change
again,
a float to a double or something like that. It's
yeah. Again,
depending on the language, but
he misunderstands natural selection.
And they're ultimately gonna say it's against odds or probabilities or whatever, and leaving out how many tries chemistry had in the early C's. They'll say, oh, it's 1 to the 10 billionth power or whatever. But if you had 10 times that amount of tries of chemical reactions, that all goes down the drain. Your odds are right down the drain.
Yeah. So Danny apparently destroyed Inspiring Philosophy, so I'm going to link those videos. Danny destroys IP. Okay, we want those. Leo provided us with a couple of links that everybody can find in my description, which would be good.
Oh yeah, Leo's only got about another week to go.
Yep. For the
big event. Looking forward to it.
Oh, spooky days coming. I went and bought a big, gigantic bag of peanut butter cups and Kit Kats and whatever. And I only have one trick-or-treater, so he's gonna get the whole fucking 3-pound bag.
Are you going to have all the kids' parents sign a waiver in case they have peanut allergies or whatever?
Oh God,
You're not responsible for anybody.
If you send your kid out trick-or-treating and he's got a peanut allergy, I think that's your problem. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a peanut butter cup in there.
I love peanut butter cups.
Well, here's a question. Is there actually peanut butter in peanut butter cups?
Anymore, I don't know. It might be peanut butter product.
Yeah, peanut butter product.
Peanut product.
They're good though. Peanut butter cups have got to be one of the best. And the commercial says it all. Remember the old commercials where the chocolate and the peanut butter ran into each other?
I sat downstairs all night knowing that those peanut butter cups were up there, and I'm on a low-carb diet. And I did not go up there and open that bag, but I do not think I'm going to make it another night. I know I'm not. It's like I can't. It's like every 5 minutes I was watching the end of Walking Dead, and every 5 minutes, peanut butter cup. You
gotta just take a couple and put the bag back, because if you sit there with the bag, you're gonna eat.
Oh my God! I'll take the whole bag down your head. Like
I'm just
the whole fucking thing.
Does Uber have an ambulance service? Because I might just need to schedule a diabetic coma.
Right. Yeah, that'd be great. We need an okay. Let's listen to some more garbage
code before we ever get to a new stretch of functional code, or is it possible to gradually, by random means, change one section of software and develop a new, say, program or operating system? If I ask that question hypothetically to a group of of software designers, they all laugh. It's obvious what happens, that those changes will degrade the existing function long before you'll come up with some fundamentally new function.
Next time you need your appendix out or brain surgery, call a software designer. You know, they know all about it. They know all about genetics and medicine.
That a new stretch of code would be required to produce. Turns out the same thing is true in the biological realm, that the sections of the arrangements of A's, G's, and T's that will code for functional proteins are extremely rare among all.
Did he say ACCs and T's?
I don't know.
I think it said G. I don't know.
His connection isn't the best there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
All the possible ways of arranging those characters. Exponentially rare. For one short protein, a colleague of mine, Douglas Axe, who worked on this problem at Cambridge for 14 years, determined that the ratio was 1 over 10 to the 77th power. For every string that will provide a stable, function-ready, function-capable structure called a protein fold, there are 10 to the 77th ways of arranging those same characters that will not produce such a thing, that will give you.
And Douglas Axe did not prove that. We went over that earlier. And here's the damn thing, though. Douglas Axe used a protein that was 153 amino acids long. And that represents a sequence space that has, let me see here, I think it's 1.4 times, oh, hang on a second here. No, I'm missing it. I think it was like, oh, what the fuck was it? 10 to the 193 different proteins, right? And if you take 1 out of 10 to the 77th, you still end up with an astronomically large number of proteins that are functional. So basically, Douglas Axe was using one protein to make a statement about this sequence space that would include every possible protein that's 150 characters long, or 150 amino acids long. And it was just bullshit, and it was laughed at. This paper has been laughed at and tossed out, and he's using it. But he does even worse here, a little further on here.
Gibberish. So what that means is then, as you start to change the digital characters, the A's, G's, and T's, you are overwhelmingly more likely to fall into a functionless abyss than to maintain function. And
that's simply not true because of the way sequence spaces work. And what you're going to have if you make one mutation, you move from one point in that sequence space, which is a hyperdimensional space that we imagine. You go from one to the other. Those things are next to each other. Those functional proteins, they are not necessarily equally separated. It's not a gas, okay? It doesn't work that way. There's some structure to it. And there is a high possibility that you're going to go from one sequence, apply a mutation, go to another, and it's either going to be neutral or it's going to be possibly slightly beneficial. And right now, the pharmaceutical industry is doing this stuff to evolve new enzymes and chemicals. In fact, all of industry is using evolution of proteins, and they're applying mutations, and they're getting results. And he's lying through his fucking teeth with this 1 to 10 to the 77th. And anybody that listens to these guys has got to, what should they do? Should they pour a pail of ice cubes on their heads? I mean, slap their own faces? They really need to stop listening to this kind of bullshit.
But even like positive, negative mutations and all that, that's all kind of relative too. Because just like I think what Scott was saying earlier, it all depends on how things work out. So if something becomes simpler but works better,
yeah,
that is still not, by their definition of what they want, is more and betterer in every generation. More and betterer. And I'm saying that because it irritates people.
Good.
But again, that's misrepresenting what evolution and selection is, and pressures. It's just misrepresenting it,
Yeah.
and that's pseudoscience.
Yep. And he does.
Other
work.
scientists have done experiments.
Here we go.
They're called site-directed mutagenesis experiments. They found that this is absolutely true. There's a scientist in Israel named Dan Tofik who died fairly recently, very
Oh,
tragic.
no, you didn't,
But
Stephen
did some
Meyer.
very important-
Dan Tofik was a rock climber, and every time he did a lecture, he would show slides of his rock climbing expedition. Unfortunately, he fell at 65 and ended his life. He's an amazing researcher in protein evolution. But let's see what he says.
work on this same question, and he started randomly changing the characters in the DNA to see what type of effect it would have on stable protein folds. Could he generate a new protein fold from a pre-existing protein fold? And he found that within a very small number of mutations in his experiments between 3 and 15, the stability of the protein fold was lost. The thermodynamic stability was lost. It would no longer fold into a stable structure. Therefore, it was no longer possible to perform a function. So he said that the protein folds, which are the fundamental unit of biological innovation, are ice. Are you still hearing me with the mic?
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep.
Yeah, they are isolated from one another in almost like galaxies separated from one another. So whereas we can get modifications of function and even some new function arising within the structure of a stable fold, getting from one fold to another is effectively biologically, it's extremely implausible. We have no Darwinian account of how that happens.
Okay, Dan Tofik, that's what he works on, is not a Darwinian account, but an account of how that happens. Now, Myers mentions 5 to 15 or 3 to 15 mutations. Did he already say that, Scott? Did I miss it?
I thought he
I'm
was cherry picking certain ones, and that was my question: is what about the other ones? Because he didn't he say 3 to 13 or something? But what about the other ones? Outside of that range?
3 to 13.
Yeah. Okay, so this is the paper. It's called Stability Effects of Mutations in Protein Evolvability. He references this in his latest book, okay? And in this paper, I'll be fucked if I can find 3 to 15 anywhere. So I have no idea, but this whole paper is about something called conformal promiscuity. And the paper is exactly about how things evolve. And if you look at the paper, the accepted paradigm that proteins can tolerate nearly any amino acid substitution has been replaced by the view that the deleterious effects of mutations, and especially their tendency to undermine thermodynamic and kinetic stability of a protein, is a major constraint on protein evolvability, right? That's in his abstract. So that's what he talks about. And then he goes on in his paper and he talks about exactly how proteins evolve. That's what the whole fucking paper is about. That's what Dan Tofik's work was about. He spent 20 years working on this very problem and coming up with amazing information about how you get from one fold to another. And he has a theory called conformal promiscuity, basically where you'll end up with a protein that gets where the fold gets a little screwed up, or okay, there's a part of the protein called the intrinsically disordered regions, and a lot of proteins are not folded at all. They're intrinsically disordered, and Dan Tofik makes a real point of explaining that a lot of proteins do not get ordered until they run into something that they have to be ordered for, okay? Or they run into some sort of a chaperone or something that folds them in a certain way. But 25% of all proteins are they're intrinsically disordered. And those proteins, if you modify them, they find, like I think Dan Tofik did some work on a protein that attacked some biochemical, I forget which one it was, like citrate or something like that. and they basically mutated it a little bit, and all of a sudden it would attack a man-made chemical and take it, basically take it out of the environment. And they found that, it acquired this new function through random mutations.
We have a question from House of Reason 78.
Okay, where is
He's
it?
a little unclear on what's being intrinsically disordered.
Intrinsically disordered proteins, and well, I'll say the other thing later. That means that the protein string, it's a long string of amino acids. That means it's kind of flopping around out there in space. It's not folded up neatly into alpha helices and into beta sheets and things that make the shape of a protein. So there are a lot of, and then there are intrinsically disordered regions in every protein. Okay, all the time at the ends of the proteins, you'll end up with intrinsically disordered regions, and then in the middle of the protein, there'll be some long strings of amino acids that are just kind of like zipping around because of heat. They change, conformation very rapidly. And conformal promiscuity means that some of these disordered regions can latch onto some sort of a substrate, and they have some sort of a functional chemical reaction with a brand new substrate because of a mutation. Is that clear? Did I explain intrinsically disordered? I suppose I could show a picture of a protein. I mean, if you've seen those fantastic pictures of proteins, they look like little balls of Legos. There are always areas in those where you see a string that kind of loops out, and those are intrinsically disordered regions, and that happens a lot. But then recently, we found that proteins don't work like machines. They always have these nice, stable, folded pictures of proteins. But when they're moving around in the cell, going into different compartments in the cell, being operated upon by, energy, thermodynamic energy.
When I think of intrinsically disordered, I'm just thinking of the T-shirts in my drawer, my chest of drawers.
Yep.
Mostly, a few are folded nicely, but most others are just tossed into the drawer and they just kind of land like they're going to land, and it's intrinsically disordered.
Disordered, right?
So
Yeah,
Myers found something cherry-picked, misrepresented, whatever, some numbers somewhere, and it's a fib. Because that's not what his paper actually says, right?
Yep, it's a fib. A protein will have a certain shape, like these are my badly drawn alpha helices, right? And then they'll have regions out here that are called intrinsically disordered. They kind of flop around, like big long ropes. And then there's regions in the middle that are often disordered. Probably should have, I could continue to draw here and create another alpha helix here, right? So we got oh my God, what did you do to me? Why did you do that? GoodNotes decided to do that. Okay, so it's like an alpha helix, and then we've got another alpha helix that crosses over, and then we have, so right here, you have an intrinsically disordered region. And what happens is that you're going to end up with one part, like this part right here might be the reason that the protein made it into evolution, because I shouldn't have done that either, but I could do this and, okay, is that my wand? Yeah. Okay, this part right here is what the enzyme does. Okay, this is the active domain that basically does the work, and this is why natural selection has kept this protein around. It does something, it digests food or something like that. Okay, but there's all these other regions that can have other functions, and what they're finding is that any one protein has a number of different things that it does, depending on what part of the cell it's in, depending on when it was created, depending on its concentration, depending on temperature, depending on a whole lot of other things. And what happens is when you start mutating this region of the protein, it does not affect what the protein does. The protein still functions for a long time. That's called neutral mutations. Basically, they don't do anything. But as these neutral mutations accumulate out in these different regions, they can end up having a totally new function. And then the other thing we have is you got one gene and then another one duplicates occasionally. And then this one gets modified because it doesn't need to do what this one does because this one's already doing it. And now we have a brand new protein. And this heads off in its own direction in the trajectory of proteins. And that's how evolution actually works. So, okay.
And it's new, so it's new information. If you want to use the loose term, it is new information.
Yeah, when they say that mutations can't create new information, that indicates that they do not understand what information is, because any mutation is creating new information. It's just different information. What they mean is that God did it in the beginning, and he wrote the perfect informative instruction manual for how to create a human. And everything after that is called a mutant, that it went downhill from there. But that's because their biblical belief is getting in the way of common sense science. And
money.
And money. It never turns out well.
Over there.
Okay, here we got Logan Fisher as an example. Good example of change in a part of protein causing massive changes. BCR, is that breast cancer?
How does Myers pay his bills?
They pay him hundreds of thousands of dollars, and he gets royalties, and he's like.
But a lot of that is his book sales, right? And that's also why they hired him, because of his books, right?
Yeah. Well,
it's not because of his research.
No, I think he got in real early. I think he got in real early to the whole creationist mess way back in the 90s, because he was in part of that Wedge document. Yeah, information in air quotes. There, also reason. Anyway, so he was lying about Tophic. Now I reached out to him and very politely asked him to tell me where he got that 3 to 15, and he may actually tell me where it is, because I read this whole fucking paper and I didn't find anything. Where's the paper? I did not find where he said that. So I don't know.
And even if it did, though, the way he said it, though, it sounded like he was picking a part of something.
Right.
When he did this, it didn't work right. Like he was leaving out the other parts. That's what I got the impression when he said it.
Okay, and this is not a paper. This is an opinion piece by Tophic and Tokoriki. Now, Dan has a whole bunch of other papers that I was looking at this week, and I read a couple of them, and that's all he talks about is how proteins evolve, how new function evolves.
So I'm wondering if it isn't the old something said out of context in a blog or an interview, and then he's trying to say that came from his paper or something, because they'll do that a lot.
I mean, usually you can find their cherry picks in the abstract, but I can't even find where he cherry picked this. I don't know. I'm not sure what the fuck he's talking about. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Don't make no sense to me. Got a whole bunch of Tophic papers here.
Could it be an obscure chart that Myers was just misreading?
It could be.
But it sounds good, though. See, everybody that's listening is going to say, "Oh, see, this scientist is saying that," and never bother to look up the paper. Right?
Yeah, one thing look at the title of the fucking paper: Protein Evolvability. Hang on a second here. Why did I put that back? Oh my God, I'm shaking. What is wrong with my hand? Okay. Where are we? Chromo, PDF.
You didn't get into those Reese cups already, did you?
No, I probably need to. Okay, the paper, the title of the paper is Protein Evolvability. Now, some other papers by Tofik are stability effects of mutations. Oh, that's stability. Okay, I got that twice. Man-made cell-like compartments for molecular evolution, the moderately efficient enzyme evolutionary and physiochemical trends shaping enzyme parameters. We got the conformational diversity and protein evolution, antibody multispecificity mediated by conformational diversity, enzyme, enzyme promiscuity, evolutionary and mechanistic aspects, protein dynamism and evolvability, the evolvability of promiscuous protein functions, paper after paper after paper about how the thing that he's saying Tofik proved couldn't happen happens. That's what Tofik did. Why are you such a lying son of a bitch, Meyer? Why are you lying like that?
Well, even reading this here, it says on that paper there, it says this example says this example this happened, this in this example this happened.
Yeah.
Right at the bottom of the paragraph on the right side there.
Oh,
See example of this. This is what this, and this is what this, and it's well, yeah, and that's what I'm saying. He's looking through something, and
yeah, and
he's finding something.
This paper is about the thermodynamics and stability of protein folds, and how you could have like 5 mutations going in a certain direction that would make that fold. All of a sudden, that fold would be dangly. It wouldn't fold right. But then he explains with these diagrams how that can actually end up in this new here's chaperone buffering, and he's got new function here, basically on the lower left diagram where he talks about how new protein functions develop.
That's new information.
Yeah, yep. And the whole paper, sort of a summary of a lot of.
He shouldn't be citing this guy at all, then.
No,
Or
he shouldn't.
person. I don't. Is it a?
No, he should be disagreeing with everything this paper says, and he should have reasons to disagree with it. So.
He's fibbing.
Yep. What do we got here?
I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah, to change within a kind, they presuppose that God created, what is that called? Created heterozygosity, which is Dr. Joel Duff and Dr. Dan and so many takedown articles.
What is a perfect genome?
Right. But this video here will get about 100 to 200 views on both of our channels. And this video here has 37,000 views.
Mm-hmm.
So 37,000 people are going to listen to this bullshit. And out of those, only about 100 or 200 are going to hear why it's bullshit. And this is what we're up against, boys and girls. And buffaloes and bunnies. I want to be all inclusive.
And you can fib with a straight face if you get paid enough. I have a price. It would have to be a lot, but otherwise I don't know if I could keep a straight face.
I won't say who, but I have a PhD friend, and we were talking this weekend, and he suggested that the place I should go to work is a Creation Institute. And I said, well, you got a PhD, so you're a shoo-in. So he could get in there, and he could hire me as his programming assistant, and we could all make, just fucking make money.
Yeah.
Well, why not? Anyway.
Oh, because if anybody with PhD behind their name, folks like Ken Ham repeat all the time, we have PhD scientists on our staff, and they say the exact opposite of every other scientist in the world.
Yep.
Because Ken Ham says so. Duh.
Yeah, and the rest of this video is just fucking what is that?
Well, I think statements of faith destroy any scientific inquiry by any of these organizations, because almost every of them, even I heard William Lane Craig even works under one. So when you work under a statement of faith that basically says we're already decided that we are right, our religious text is right, regardless of what any scientist says. And then to play, oh no, we're doing science, goes right against that paper they signed to work there and why they're getting paid in the first place.
Am I hearing a bird?
Yeah, we have birds in the front yard.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right.
My wife
Hopefully
has
I'll have a
birds.
yard with plenty of birds in it.
My wife,
next week.
it's like almost 80 degrees. We're having a little heat wave before it takes a nosedive.
Get that off. I thought.
Yeah, it's 81 here today, and it's sunny, so hopefully it won't. It won't.
I had all the windows closed up and everything, but heck, I opened up my window right here, and yeah, the birds like to land right here under the window. I have to have the bird stickers on my window because they kept flying into my window.
I'm back. Are you guys back?
Back in black.
Okay, we're back in black. Yeah, I don't know. Does this describe it? That's the rest of the video. That's all you needed. Scientists are being mean to me because they're calling me a pseudoscientist. Oh no, I wonder why. Maybe because you fucking quote a paper and a researcher who said the exact opposite of what the fuck you were trying to say. It's like, yeah.
And also, you can put it this way: he's being a liar for Jesus.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
when we were chatting in the text there with James and stuff about James Tour, it's like, yes, James Tour is very accomplished in his field. Why he has to badmouth other scientists when other scientists will say, oh yeah, James Tour is a leader in his field. I mean, people aren't bad-mouthing him because of his field like he's doing to other people. But then James Tour put out that video recently where he says, oh, now when I walk into a room full of scientists, they're all whispering about me. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, number one, you may have bad-mouthed that person. And number two, yeah, you're saying all this stuff about fields you're not even in and shouldn't be sticking your nose into, primarily to big church groups. He's not doing this in front of other peers or scientists or the related fields or anything else. They're church groups. And again, that's what he's doing. He's sticking all these seeds into all these people that don't know any better. They're all having a good laugh. Oh, the scientists all got it wrong. James Tour knows everything.
So the Wedge, Center for the Renewal of Science and Culture.
And isn't James Tour in with the DI too?
Yeah, but Stephen Meyer is actually mentioned in this document. So he was involved in this, and I think this came out, 1998. Let's see, this is the proposition that human beings are created in the image of God is one of the bedrock principles on which Western civilization was built. Its influence can be detected in most, if not all, of the West's greatest achievements, including representative democracy, human rights, free enterprise, and progress. Oh my God, really? Christianity did that? The Greeks didn't have anything to do with that? Nobody else? No?
It also made your grandmother's most delicious peach pie. Christianity can do anything.
Yeah. The cultural consequences of this triumph of materialism were devastating. Materialists denied the existence of the objective moral standards, claiming that environment dictates our behaviors and beliefs.
Straw man.
Such moral relativism was uncritically adopted by much of the social sciences and still undergirds much of modern economics and blah, blah, blah.
That's like when they say secular scientists.
Yeah, and then the materialism spawned virulent strain of utopianism. Okay, what's wrong with utopia? I don't know. Oh, here we go. Stephen Meyer. Here we go. The center is directed by Stephen Meyer, right here. So he was involved in that in 1998.
Okay.
The Wedge strategy, phase 1, scientific research, writing, and publicity. publicity and opinion making, cultural confrontation and renewal. Let's go after the trans people, LGBTQ. Let's go after everybody. Let's see, scientific individual research program, paleontology. Okay, they're working on that. Here we go. Publicity and opinion making. In other words, propaganda. Book publicity, opinion maker conferences, apologetics seminars. Here we go. Phase 3, cultural confrontation, academic and scientific challenge conferences, potential legal action for teacher training. Look at that. What's that? What is that? What do they mean? They're going to do what?
They're going to sue people. They're going to sue the schools, and they're going to teach intelligent design to teachers and teach the controversy.
Right.
Well, part of that Christian group with the nationalists or whatever they call themselves, part of their rules of whatever they call it, their own commandments, part of the thing is to get people into more believers into school boards and all that kind of stuff to influence things.
Let's see. Okay, they're talking about talk shows and how to popularize their ideas. Phase 3, once our research and writing have had time to mature and the public prepared for the reception of design theory, we will move toward direct confrontation with advocates of materialist science through challenge conferences in significant academic settings. We will also pursue possible legal assistance in response to resistance.
Resistance is futile.
To resistance to the integration of design theory into public schools and school science curricula. Interesting. Goals. To defeat scientific materialism and its destructive moral, cultural, and political legacies. To replace materialistic explanations with the theistic understanding that nature and human beings are created by God.
In other words, make America ignorant again.
To see intelligent design theory as accepted alternative to the sciences, right? 20-year goals. To see intelligent design theory as the dominant perspective in science. To see design theory applications in specific fields, okay? And to see design theory permeate our religious, cultural, moral, and fucking political life. Right? Pretty good, eh? And these guys, they said, they produced an article called The Wedge Document. So what? We didn't really mean it. We weren't really saying theocracy, even though we said it out loud. We didn't mean to say it out loud. Like, oh, you caught us. Because this document was leaked. This was a private document. Pretty interesting. Oh, my God. Spiritual and cultural renewal, teacher training. Okay, I can imagine a boot camp where they send teachers. Like, we got to get you thinking right, son.
That's one of the things they push is teach the other side. Again, well, if you teach chemistry, you should teach alchemy. Why aren't you teaching the kids alchemy?
Yeah, right. Teach
What about astrology? How come my kid doesn't know what a Virgo is?
Fucking witchcraft, you know?
Yeah.
There we go. Christian nationalism, there you go. That's what they're after.
That's the word, Christian nationalism.
Yep. Dover v.
They get all those prophet preachers all up on the stage there, and they had Mike Pillow there and everything else. And they had that on the big screen, what all their, code of conduct or whatever they call it is. And it's scary. Yeah, we want to take over, and resistance is futile, and we're ready to take up arms and blah blah blah. It's scary if they actually had enough of them to actually do it.
And I think they're about 30% strong in this country, and there's another 20% that are on the fence. And we'll see if they vote for Trump this time. That fucking felon.
Somebody was saying today, I think it was Jason Pargin on the Daily Zeitgeist, said that if the election were held today, Trump would win.
Yep. It's quite possible.
Did you see he got nailed with another fine yesterday?
Oh,
That judge doesn't take nothing. He said, I told you to quit running your mouth.
and he's still doing it.
So then the lawyers objected to the
Well,
$10,000 fine.
This is David Galloway for the
Hold on,
Center
guys.
for Intelligent Design.
I didn't say
The lawyers stood up and objected to the $10,000 fine. So the judge said, I've reconsidered. It's still a $10,000 fine. And try me. See what happens next time. He put Trump on the stand and made him answer under oath who he was talking about. He said, I don't find your answers credible.
I would just love to
$10,000
see a
fine.
video of Trump standing up and walking to the stand after being ordered by the judge to do so.
Well, what's her face was crying in court. I can't remember her name. The one that was tagging around with Giuliani.
Oh, Jenna Ellis.
She was crying in court.
I think, though, those were performative tears.
Well, yeah,
because she was kind of smiling and laughing right up to when she had to read her statement.
Yeah.
Now, of course, people have performative smiles too, where they smile to be friendly or polite or to be nice, quote unquote. But yeah, I'm just kind of cynical. I think tears like that are performative, and it just,
they aren't sorry. They're sorry they got caught.
Exactly.
Yep. Okay, guys, I'm tired. I'm so tired.
Well, I just want to tell our viewers that we just love to bring these, especially when Mike does all the work, these takedowns of, like, here's what Stephen Meyer said, here's what the paper he quoted really says. And just let you know that with confidence, anytime somebody introduces you to some quote unquote new information from the creation science or from the intelligent design community, you are very well, justified. That's the word. In going, I sincerely doubt that.
Yeah.
In fact, we need to all say that together, just to practice looking an ID person in the eyes and going, I sincerely doubt that.
Yep.
Do it that way with inflection, because they are doubtable. I mean, the person talking to you may sincerely think it's true, but their source is sincerely doubtful.
Well, what you got to do is if you're on Donnie's channel, Standing in Poop, and they bring up and he brings up a paper and he says something about the paper, you say, hey, Donnie, let's pull that paper up. I want you to show me exactly in the paper where it says that. And then I want to read the conclusion of the paper. And we want to spot around and we want to just get the gist of what the paper's about. And stop everything. It's like, stop the fucking presses right here. You said something. You brought up a paper. Let's see if the paper really says what you says it does.
Last time I asked Donnie a question, he put me in a timeout.
Oh, yeah.
Fuck yeah. You'll get a timeout or you'll just get banned from the channel.
Yeah.
I was like, he put me in a timeout. I was like, really? Oh, man.
Somebody put me in a time. JG put me in a timeout. And then he lied and said he didn't do it. And it said the owner of the channel has timed you out, right?
Oh, I got a badge Monday with the Answers News show. I got timed out I got the big timeout in the live chat.
Yep.
But in case anybody doesn't know, for some reason, Answers in Genesis, Ken Ham stuff, they have changed their social media policy. They used to have the comments and the chats and all that stuff all turned off on YouTube. Now they're opened up. So if you want to leave comments or participate in a live chat, they have changed their policy. They have their comments are on their videos and stuff now. So I'm not saying to post anything derogatory or anything. I am just letting you know that they seem to have changed their social media policy.
Yeah. Maybe we can push back a little bit. Maybe Stephen Myers will tell me where he found that number in that
Yeah.
paper, because I don't know. I couldn't find it. Of course,
Yeah,
I'm
one of the-
ADHD, so I could be wrong.
One of the mods nailed me. I was getting away with it pretty good for last couple months, and then yesterday I don't know what I said, but they nailed me.
Tom Jump debated Kent Hovind recently. Did that happen? Oh, yeah, he did.
Everything Tom's been posting is repeats, because he had to switch everything from one channel to the other because of his monetization issues.
Really?
Yeah, they
Am I
were.
the one getting an echo from
Yeah, you're echoing.
Who is me?
Mike,
Dave is echoing to me.
it's got to be Mike. I didn't do it.
Mike, straighten up.
There you go.
That's much better. Much better.
No, yeah.
What the fuck?
Tom, nope, it's still on me.
What the fuck? Okay. Well, we're gonna shoot her in the head.
But basically, Tom was reposting modern day debate stuff, and because modern day debate is monetized, they told him he couldn't monetize or have it on his because he's monetized. Like they won't let you double dip, so he had to set up another channel, and he's been transferring everything over there. And as he transfers them over there, he premieres them. So they're basically all the repeats of what he's done, leaving out the ones that are double dips so he can get his monetization thing worked out. So he has another channel now, in case you don't know that.
Okay, how about now?
Testing.
That's
Still echoing.
no,
I think we
it's
just
the demon.
a quick exit.
It's the
Yeah.
demon.
Yeah, I'm echoing too. So Restream did something to me when I muted all the.
Yeah,
It's a
you
long
did it.
story. It's a long story.
I didn't touch it.
I moved some tabs over and it all went down. Okay, we're gonna end.
That's pretty cool.
Shoot her in the head. I don't hear that. I'm not enjoying it.
I don't hear it now.
It's now it's gone.
Yeah, as soon as I do the evil laugh, it stops. I don't know
You
if
fixed it.
Oh, okay.
I think
Restream
Dave was.
started.
I didn't touch nothing.
Yeah, it was Restream for a while. It stopped canceling, stopped doing echo cancellation because it got confused. Because their programmers and their code mutated, like a couple of bits mutated, and that's what happens. So,
All right, and for everybody that didn't catch it, Steve Meyer fibbed.
yeah, he fibbed. Okay, guys, we're gonna shoot her in the head. You ready?
See ya all later, and
Thanks
see
everybody for
in the
tuning
chat
in.
later.
God, thank you guys for tuning in today on both channels. I mean, we got a pretty good response today. We don't usually, so thank you so much for showing up. And host of Reason 78, glad to meet you. I don't think I met you before. Anyway, okay. Goodbye, cruel world.